Guys, you've got to explain to me like I'm five. Explain to me like I'm five. You know, when you go on ChatGPT, explain to me like I am 5 years old, because I need to understand why Elliot Anderson is potentially going to be worth, depending, of course, if Manchester City decide to go through with it, he is going to be worth over £100 million. In fact, we're talking north of £120 million for Elliot Anderson. By the way, this is no slander on Elliot Anderson. I think he is a good player. I genuinely do. I genuinely believe he is a good Premier League player, deservedly in the England squad. In fact, he deserves other teams looking to sign him. And this is no slight. This video is no slight on any team that wants to price their players at whatever it is they want to price them at. It's your prerogative. I'm not trying to be that type of person. I'm just trying to figure out how we went from players who I would have deemed to be superstars and, some of the best players we have ever seen in Premier League history, like Eden Hazard, going for 89 million. This, by the way, 2019. This is what 89 million pounds got you. It got you a winger who had played 52 games, scored 21 goals, and got 17 assists. In that same season, he won the Playmaker of the Year award. In that same season, he won the Europa League Player of the Season award. This is his trophy cabinet. This is what it is for a player like Eden Hazard, by the way. Now, granted, this was, what's that, 7 years ago, right? So, of course, in that period of time, we've had inflation. We've had inflation in that time. So, as you can see, £89 million in 2019 gets you approximately 150. So, imagine this is the crazy part, right? Imagine, even with inflation, right? It's still more than that. So Eden Hazard in today's game wouldn't like you. What would that even cost you? And like I said, people, I've tried to look inflation. Obviously, I'm gonna assume different kind of websites are gonna have different numbers, and obviously it's just a range, right? So in and around this kind of number. Inflation has roughly gone up to about 30% in that time, right? Since 2019, and obviously this is more in everyday walk of life, so to speak, as opposed to specifically to football. As we know, the football markets are obviously a lot higher than it would be for, as I said before, the everyday kind of life, right? But we're talking around about 115 million. And Nottingham Forest have rejected it and are looking for more. From what I believe, they're looking for a British record fee. And again, this is no slight on Elliot Anderson or Nottingham Forest. It really isn't. This isn't even about you. Unfortunately, you're just a poster boy for this specific video and for this specific topic. I fully understand it, but when I'm seeing stuff like this, David Ornstein saying, the verbal proposal was worth 106 million plus add-ons, taking it above 120 million. But Nottingham Forest want a British record fee guaranteed, not after bonuses. So they're not even trying to hear, yeah, if he plays 50 games or he wins it. No, no, no. I want that P right now. Then you've got Bournemouth, who are saying they're valuing Alex Scott at around £80 million. Crystal Palace are asking for £100 million for Adam Wharton. West Ham. This is the kicker, because West Ham have been relegated. They've actually been relegated. Like, they're no longer actually in the Premier League. They're asking for 85 million. Now, I totally understand they may not get these fees, but I, I I'm starting to feel like there's a level of audacity that I didn't ever think we would even get to. I genuinely didn't think we'd get to this stage where talented young players, these are talented individuals. These are not players who I would call bums or anything like that. Ultimately, these guys play in the Premier League, so they're not really bums, right? But in terms of just in context, these are not rubbish players. These are players who are, to be fair, all of these midfielders are all sought after. All of them. Every single one of them. If you had your team, barring maybe Arsenal. And even then, I feel like they would probably want to take one of these players on this list. I feel like every single team in the Premier League would want at least one of these players, at least one. Doesn't matter which one, you would want at least one. But we've reached this stage now. As I mentioned before, now I only went back to Hazard because that was only 7 years ago. I could have obviously have gone back a lot further, but inflation has gone up, 40, 50% since the days of like Gareth Bale going for, was it 89 or 85 million or whatever it was, when he went to Real Madrid from Spurs. Now that was Gareth Bale. We're talking about a player who was playing at the highest level. Like he was the best or one of top 2/3 players in the league at that point. If this is not an indictment of how far, in my opinion, football has just fallen, honestly, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. Like I really don't, because we've reached a stage now where 100 million is it's not enough. And I get it, because the landscape of football in terms of the talent that's out there is so scarce. It's like it's basically non-existent at this stage. It's effectively non-existent. Like we don't have quality, and the Premier League is a major problem because of the amount of money that is spent in the Premier League. I don't have the figures at hand, but you guys will probably know it if you do your Googles and check, whoever, you'll be able to find it, right? But the money that's being spent in the Premier League is ridiculous. And that's probably why we're getting into these situations whereby a team like I'll use Aston Villa as an example, because they had problems with PSR, last season in terms of trying to sign players. Obviously, they had that issue with Harvey Elliott, right? Couldn't really afford to pay the money to actually play him. So they thought, you know what, best if we just don't play him. That way we're not committed to anything. Obviously, they don't know where they're going to end up at the end of the league. They know they're going to win the Europa League, all these other so many different things. Newcastle got the richest owners and still can't spend hardly any money unless they sell a player like Alexander Isak. Now, money's not going to be a guarantee for anything. As we have seen, a lot of these teams, especially the lower teams, because there's so much money in the Premier League, and these guys, teams like a Brighton, a team like a Brentford team, whoever, these kind of teams, Bournemouth and all these kind of guys, they can spend money, but not all of them are spending money wisely. So of course, money's never going to be a guarantee, but in theory, it should help. If you got more money, you should be able to buy better products, right? Do you know what I mean? You don't have to shop at Aldi or Lidl. No disrespect, because I shop at both of those places, but you don't have to shop there. If you can shop at Waitrose, get the same product, but it might be just a bit better quality. M&S. Do you know what I mean? There's going to be maybe a slight difference kind of thing, but it will at least give you that opportunity to be able to do so. And that's kind of where we're at now with football, the whole PSR and I mean, this profit sustainability rules and all that kind of stuff. I feel like that's just all in the bin. Like how we stop it, I don't really know. I really don't have the answers, for things like that. I think that's well above my pay grade, first and foremost, but just it's above even my knowledge just of the game in itself. But we have reached this stage where £100 million is just becoming a normal fee, or it's becoming a fee where you're just like, yeah, if you want my best player, then that's just what you got to do. Now, a part of me is happy for those smaller teams, because they could never have done this before, but now they're starting to think, hey, listen, look, if I keep him, it might be worth more to me than actually accepting this £100 million. So, for example, a Bournemouth who've just finished in the Europa League this season, obviously had these players, obviously they've played well, etc. They might be sitting there thinking, well, hold on a minute, if we can keep an Alex Scott, if we can keep a Rayan, if we can keep a Krupi, we might be able to push a little bit further, which gives us even more money, more revenue, more commercial revenue, more of everything, essentially the money, right? So I can understand it from a smaller team point of view. But honestly, the audacity that we are reaching at this moment in time, and again, it's not to disrespect any of the smaller teams. I respect them all highly, right? Ultimately, you're doing what you need to do to make sure you're in a good place, and that's what you should be doing. It doesn't matter about anybody else. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't be worried about any other club. Worry about your own club. So 100%, I'm with the smaller teams in that regards. This is just more to highlight the Premier League is just so it's just so all over the gap, in my personal opinion. And like I said, the quality of football players, and it's not just exclusive to the Premier League, but it's the Premier League is where we're spending the most money. and we're spending money on players that are not really even that good. They're not really of that kind of high level. And this is why then players are going to be sold for X amount. And then what then happens after that is they don't really perform. What do you do now? Now you've got a player who cost you potentially 100 million quid. Is he really performing? Is he just going to sit on the bench? Or how much can you sell him for? Teams eventually will, over a period of time, I feel, end up just coming into a loss, because if this is just going to be the going rate for, let's say, a team's best player or best performer, especially in just that season, what then happens if, because as we know, just like any transfer fees, I don't think that this will ever change. Football is football at the end of the day. Players are going to be bought for whatever amount. Not every player is going to work out. You probably even calculate in your head that not every single player may potentially work out. They might work for certain things, but in a general sense, may not necessarily work out for what you're trying to do moving forward. What then happens? Because you've already spent, I mean, are we going to get to a stage now where, certain players are going to have to go for 300 million? We saw Real Madrid. Like I say, tried. They put in that bid for Julian Alvarez. That was 150 million. Now, I knew that was never going to be enough, to be fair, to get an Alvarez. But those are the kind of numbers that I would be expecting for a player like him anyway. We're talking about one of the best players in his position in world football, not just in his league, in world football. That's the kind of prices that I would have expected. But when you're then talking about the Elliot Andersons, the Alex Scott, and I'm sitting there thinking, I mean, again, I granted, I think they're good players, but I mean, I also think Lamine Kamara is a good player. He's probably on the same level as all of those midfielders, if I'm being honest. Sangare, maybe not on an Elliot Anderson level, but I mean, is he not on Alex Scott level at least? I don't think he's going to cost you 80 million. I'll be surprised if he does, but from what I've seen reported, he's not going to cost you that. Warren Zaire Emery, he might cost you a little bit just because he's at PSG, academy player, etc., etc. But I'm just trying to think that there are so many players, and you start looking at the Yan Diamondes. Leipzig are looking for north of 80 million for a player who's had one good season. Like, this is where we're at the moment when it comes to football. It is crazy. It is crazy. Like, gone are the days where you can potentially get a bargain, or the big fees are reserved for the bad boys in football. We've passed that now. That stage has absolutely gone. So now we're in this kind of stage, and boy, I hope it doesn't continue, because boy, I feel like the top clubs. I mean, maybe this was always going to happen. This might even potentially even turn out to be a good thing, where the top clubs just think, you know what, I'm not trying to spend 150 million on this player when, you know what, let's get something else, kind of thing. And then eventually things just go back to, I guess, the way it kind of was with these smaller clubs versus the big clubs. I don't know. Again, I'm not for or against it in any such way. I'm more just highlighting, in my opinion, how crazy this looks at this current moment in time in terms of the landscape, of the game, and just the kind of way that things are kind of heading at the moment. Where does it even end? Where does it even? You're talking about a guy who plays for Nottingham Forest, and he's in the England squad, so I will give him that. But he was at Newcastle, didn't do anything there. Went to Nottingham Forest. Obviously, this is where he's starting to make his name. And now you're saying, yeah, I need a British record fee for him. Boy, yeah. Yeah. Listen, it's going to be an interesting summer. It's going to be a real interesting summer. As I said, I don't really want to go back into time and go back in time. Should I say? Sorry, too far. 7 years. I feel like that's a decent enough gap. Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, even still, even if you want to go back 5 years, I'm pretty sure you can find some players within there, in the last 5 years who have been sold, or last 6 years, should I say, since 2020, who have been sold, for a certain amount. And now you're looking at the players and you're thinking, ooh, did you get? I could have used Paul Pogba, but that was maybe just a little bit before that, kind of thing. But even still, a player of that kind of quality. And again, I understand because of inflation and stuff like that, as I showed you guys before. But even still, to me, these players, it's too much now. Like, I'm now so confused as to, I don't even know how to even rate the players anymore. Like, I don't know how, because I'm like, well, if he costs you 100 and something million, then surely, like, before, if someone cost you 100 and something million, in my mind, I'm like, I have to judge him towards that. But if that now becomes normal, I can't really judge him towards that. I've almost got to judge him like a 60 million pound, or what I used to think a 50, 60 million pound player was, just because if that just becomes a normal thing now, we've got to move with the times, right? So that's now just it. And then you get people like myself who then start dipping back into the nostalgia kind of look of things and thinking, nah, that can't happen. I was good with players costing more than Cristiano Ronaldo or Gareth Bale or Zinedine Zidane. I understood. I was like, yeah, no, that's fine. But I never thought it was, even during that period of time, and I'll end it with this, right? Even during that period of time, like let's say since I've been watching football as an example, so like, what's that, 96, 97, yeah, till now, even throughout that time where fees have been broken, whether it's Figo and again Zidane, Ronaldo, Kaká, whoever, it was always the biggest fees were always reserved for the best players, though. So I never looked at it like, oh, that's a bit mad. What, Pogba cost you 89 million or 85 million, whatever it was from Juventus? That's a bit mad. No, I used to think, nah, I kind of feel like that makes sense, because at the time I thought he was one of the best midfielders out there. Did you get what I'm saying? So it didn't seem like a madness. Yes, what happened afterwards, cool, but before the fact, I never really looked at it and thought, yeah, this is kind of crazy. Whereas now, I'm like, unless, like I said, unless players are now, we're going to be touching that 200 million pound mark, which I don't think clubs want to do just yet, but I feel like we are getting very close. I mean, PSG have done it with Neymar already, so we have touched it once. Whether we'll do so again, I don't know. I feel like if you're going to try and sign an Elise at this point now, he has to cost you about 200 million, and even then, Bayern might not even want to sell. Like, it's mad. It's mad. It's mad. It's so crazy right now. But listen, let me know your thoughts, man. Let me know your thoughts. How are you guys kind of seeing things? And do you think things are going to change? In the future, do you think it's going to get worse? Like, are these players worth it? Like, I don't know. Just let me know your thoughts in the comment section, peeps. I'll catch you guys soon, man.